Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Newark Capital channel. And tonight, we're going to be diving into a few things. We're going to be essentially talking about the general macroeconomic outlook and how blockchain slash crypto is essentially going to be the essentially shining knight in armor in this potential massive economic crisis. So without further ado, let's dive right into the video and let's talk about the current economic outlook in the US. So uh, there's certainly a few things that we need to be concerned about. Of course, there's the high inflation, the mountains of debt, and the GDP, excuse me, as well as the interest rates that are just not looking good. GDP is low. That just essentially means we're not innovating. In fact, the U.S. is driving innovation out of the country, and New Zealand is a little slow, you could say, at the moment, but certainly not as bad as the U.S. is, at least from my point of view, being here and all. So yeah, there's certainly things that are not going well, and this data here from JP Morgan says that the GDP growth, if we just roll here, the real GDP is looking to drop quite massively by the end of this year. So, not to me, not much of a shocker, but it is what it is. Now, I literally just watched a scene from the Big Short movie, and it was a scene with Ryan Gosling pitching to short the bonds of the MBS, the mortgage-backed securities. I was watching that scene, and it occurred to me that what happened was, of course, when the interest rates went up, people couldn't afford the to pay the monthly repayments anymore, and so a lot of the MBS mortgage-backed securities defaulted. That made me realize that the current economy we're in today, we've learned a few things from that. We've learned to slow down inflation a little bit through just by raising the interest rates, because when the US government went on top of things and when they were essentially just making their money, the bankers and so forth, the institutions, they didn't care about it. They just thought that everything was going to be okay, and ultimately they just left everything alone and they didn't see it coming. It came as a shock, essentially. But now when the COVID situation happened, we acted fast. The U.S. acted fast, and they raised rates to slow inflation in a way that doesn't completely collapse the housing market, because it was also heading that way where the housing prices were falling rapidly, but the interest rates were also rising rapidly. But they managed to slow that down a little bit to just keep afloat and essentially recover, even though we haven't really recovered. But we have learned a few things from 2008 on. But here's the thing: the funny thing is, I argue that the 2008, even 2001, was a setup. It is a conspiracy, and it does sound a little crazy, but I'll explain further in the video. But I'll leave it at as it is just for now. I also want to talk about how we have these situations of debt, inflation, GDP not growing, and the interest rates still at a high, which businesses still struggle. And of course, that's why you're starting to see layoffs and so forth all over the place. I also want to talk about the geopolitical tensions that are out there, which is only adding fuel to the fire into the economy, into the global economy and the US economy. So, of course, we got the Russia and Ukraine conflict, as well as the US and China conflict there, with Taiwan and even with trade. It's clearly causing massive disruptions. It's slowing the flow of trade, which means, I mean, you see China being the heavy imported and exported goods. So if that gets disrupted and that slows down, then you can only imagine what happens to the global economy. Same with the US, and how essentially you're only going to see a rise in demand, but of course the supply is never there, so inflation gets worsened, and yeah, and the housing markets get slow. Those sort of things. Those are the ripple effects, as you will, of what happens when trade falls behind. So these geopolitical tensions are a problem, and they are still on the rise and at an all-time high still. So it's just there's a lot going on, essentially. We know financial system is broken, and then of course we know the geopolitical tensions are at an all-time high, and that's not good. Not looking good at all for the world and for the U.S. in general. But there are some silver linings here. Okay, it's not just doom and gloom. And I don't want to be a fear monger, right? You see a lot of prominent individuals, and look, I'm not gonna call them out. I'm not gonna because I'm nobody. I'm still young. I'm still trying to figure all this out. I'm still putting the pieces together and doing my best to essentially make informed finance decisions on this, in this market. But you've got a lot of those guys just kind of, they speak truth for sure about what's happening with the current economy, but sometimes it just feels like it's a little too much, you could say, and it doesn't really help anybody. So I want to shed a little bit of light on that there as well, with how we can essentially avoid this one economic collapse and two World War III. But that's just the positive side of me, I'll be honest. But the realistic side of me says that we're a little too late for that. But let's just explore the let's just explore the options anyway. Now, what do we need? We need to strengthen our alliances and diversify our trade partners. This means not just coming from China. I mean, the U.S. and I think was it the U.S. or Apple specifically was already exploring trade, forming a trade partnership with India, and I know India recently formed a partnership with Vietnam, which is the country that I'm originally from, which is really nice, which is really cool. I thought that was a great step forward for my country. Think of it as building a network of safety nets to catch all of us if and when we do fall. And also, this is where blockchain and AI comes in. So we already know. I've already discussed this in the previous video about the BIS, the Bank of International's plan around essentially the Internet of Value, which they've called the FinTernet. Essentially, it consists of one unified ledger to manage and settle and custody a bunch of different digital assets and even other assets that are tokenized and so forth. We've got the applications would include e-banking, digital wallet, financial apps, or even non-financial apps. And this would include managers of around central banks and commercial banks, asset management companies, private or public blockchains, real estate registrars, and so forth. And of course, if you just kind of look into the graph, you can kind of get an idea of what it does and how it does things. But the other thing that we have to acknowledge here is the unified interledger protocol, which we know the interledger protocol is forefronted by the company Ripple, who is essentially the company utilizing the technology XRP to enhance payments globally, cross-border payments. Now, there's a few things that I would like to discuss here as well. Is so we know this the Interledger Protocol, technology designed by Ripple to leverage XRP to essentially be act as an interoperable bridge between different currencies and even central bank digital currencies. And then we have the Asian Development Bank, which consists of essentially the Western region as well as the Asia Pacific regions of banks to come together. 31 members as an establishment. ADB now has 68 members, and they were modeled closely to the World Bank. So they're a big deal, essentially. At the end of the day, they're a big deal, and they have a big say in the global economy. But this is not the point. The point is what that the point is in the article that they've released in 2019, which had an interesting statement here. So this is page 25. If I just go to the first page, it's talking about distributed ledger technology and digital assets policy and regulatory challenges in Asia. And then if we jump into page 25, that was weirdly loud. My bad. um, anyway, we jump in here, and what I found interesting was this part. The question of whether a given crypto asset will be recognized as part of the formal payment system. Sorry, let me just highlight it so you can see. Will largely depend on how it is meant to be used in a given jurisdiction. Bitcoin and Ethereum often fall outside, while Ripple and XRP often fall within the system. This is because formal payment systems are generally closed loop systems. If some crypto assets can be integrated into the formal payment system, they can be used as a settlement vehicle, not as a medium of exchange. Other jurisdictions may classify crypto assets as commodities, like the US has been going over XRP as a commodity, has given us that clarity and so forth, um, or simply apply consumer protection laws. But what's crazy here? This gets better, guys. This actually gets better. So we've already got the was it the Asian Development Bank (ADB) talking about how to be recognized as a formal payment system will depend on how it is meant to be used in a given jurisdiction and how Bitcoin and Ethereum fall outside and XRP falls within. Now, what gets interesting here is MiCA. It is a legal framework for the EU, for European Union, to essentially provide regulations and clarity on the crypto market. And what's so interesting, if you scroll down, there is a PDF document for this, but this is still on the EU's website. MiCA will protect investors by increasing transparency and putting in place a comprehensive framework for issuers and service providers, including compliance with the anti-money laundering rules, which Ripple we already know is uh, do comply with this. The new rules cover issuers of utility tokens, asset reference tokens, and so-called stablecoins. So this already gives you an idea that anything that falls outside of this probably is a no-go. And this is MiCA again, which is a legal framework for the crypto space around the EU. And the EU is a big market, my friends. So, if you've been connecting the dots in this video, you can already tell. Of course, utility tokens. XRP often falls within the system. They can be used as a settlement vehicle and not as a medium of exchange. A settlement vehicle, that means it has utility. And of course, we've got the unified ledger, which involves the interledger protocol, which involves Ripple and XRP. So, I don't know if you picked up on this yet, but this is why I do the research in this space. It's not just me, but it's for my family, and I want you guys as well to be a part of this essentially global transfer of wealth, the greatest transfer of wealth in history, and I want you to be a part of it because look, this is a brave new world that we're heading into. I'm not gonna lie, this is going to happen. It's already confirmed essentially by the BIS, by the IMF, and of course by the ADB, and with regulations coming out by the end of this year, with MiCA finally being fully be fully applicable by the end of 2024 in December, it's clear to me where this space is going. Now, there's also another thing that I've been theorizing a little bit, but at the same time, not really. It's when this legal framework is released in the EU, I truly do think there will be a bubble burst that occurs in the crypto market. Because think about it. I mean, it will take time. It doesn't just happen immediately on December 2024. No, it will take time for regulators, governments to reach out to all the blockchain companies around the space, all the projects around the space, and or at least around the EU, and say, "Hey, are you guys following Mika? Are you guys, you know, does your crypto have any utility? Is it a stable coin? No. Is it just a meme? Sorry, mate, you're out." It could be something like that. I don't know. Like, it's gonna be very interesting what happens when Mika finally gets implemented, fully implemented in the EU across the EU. Uh, and you can already get an idea that Ripple is and XRP is safe, guys. And utility will matter. I don't care about a meme coin that pumped 900% yesterday, and now it's back down to and now it's I don't know minus 600%. I don't care about that. Or minus 1,100%. I don't really care. I really don't. I don't care about the price action today, tomorrow, next week, next year, next 10 years. Guys, if you're sticking to the fundamentals, if you're not overcomplicating things, and you understand business and how it's done, which by the way, it's not as complicated as you think, then this should be clear to you guys. It should be. But of course, there's a lot of people in the space that are still very I don't want to call them out. I don't want to, be mean, I guess you could say. But I will say not very mature in this space. And that's okay, It's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. I mean, the media pushes this idea how we should be getting things done quickly and it should be, here and now. But in real life, it's a lot more different than that. And it could be that it's a little faster with innovations and so forth. But when it comes to achieving greatness for yourself and for your family, that actually does take time. So all I can say is be patient, guys. If you're in this space, if you're already invested, let's say, and again, by the way, this is no financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, even though I previously worked for one of the big four banks in New Zealand, two of the big four banks in New Zealand. Sorry, I don't have my certifications yet. I don't have my qualifications yet. So before I wrap up the video, they do want to cover essentially why I kind of feared to make this video in the first place. And the reason being is there was a couple reasons. The first one is I briefly mentioned how we had a chance to avoid this whole conflict with other countries around trade, around geopolitical issues, war, and as well as potential economic collapse, which a lot of us are predicting that will come. The chance was for us to, well, not us particularly, me being in New Zealand. I said essentially I mean for the U.S. to. There was a chance for the U.S. to push out clear regulations for the crypto space way before today, way before just 2023, even 2024. Could have been even just after the COVID pandemic. We could have done this earlier, and businesses would be thriving, and businesses would just be staying in the US and developing at the center, at the heart of the global macroeconomy, and essentially innovate and interoperate with this new technology of blockchain and crypto, and it could have done things a lot more efficiently. We could have had instant settlements potentially by now. I mean, I don't think so. It could have probably taken longer, but still, we would be way further ahead today with instant settlement than, well, of course, where we are now, which we haven't even pushed through clear regulations yet. So we had that chance, but now it seems like the inevitable will happen. War will happen. And the reason I say that is because, look, I have this theory that I just literally had a chat with my friend about. Um, we had a theory that what if the 2001 collapse, 2008 collapse, and the of course the pandemic 2020 was all planned out. And let me explain. When we detach from the dollar, when we detach the dollar from gold, surely global institutions like the BIS, like the World Bank, and so forth, surely, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not sure about surely, but maybe they already had an idea of where that was going. Maybe because technically, I mean, it's obvious to notice that when you detach the dollar from gold, the dollar essentially becomes valueless in a sense. I mean, yeah, sure, the dollar did rely on the military strength of the U.S. and the economic strength of the U.S. But still, you kind of have to think about it and say, technically, realistically, it has no tangible value backing it anyway. And so, surely they know this, and surely they, being the global elite institutions that they are, BIS, World Bank, IMF, maybe what if they were not essentially asleep at the wheel. Maybe they were 10 steps ahead of the game. We had to ask these questions because if you connect dots, what if 2001, 2008, 2020, what if those were test drives? Do you remember what Rosie Rios said in, I think it was a business summit in 2021 or 2018? I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't really remember. But you can search it up on YouTube. And when she said she was asked to reduce coin and cash usage, and she couldn't because she couldn't change consumer behavior. And she said the only way to change consumer behavior was to have a shock in the system. That was the 43rd treasurer of the United States saying that in public at a business summit. Okay. I mean, let's be honest, no one really pays attention to that, but still, and even if they did pay attention, who actually, how many people actually understand what it means, right? So you see, these are the things that you just kind of see, and you, yeah, it is speech, it is, at a business summit she was saying that, but if you kind of connect the dots, if that were true, if these actions were taken, kind of gotta question it a little bit and think, oh shit, maybe they planned this out all along. Maybe these were just test drives. Maybe these economic collapse were just test drives, and we were just the puppets. Maybe. I'm not saying that that's actually true, but that's a theory of mine that I had, and so that's why this video kind of freaks me out a little bit. It's just it allowed me to connect the dots and think about, think in a global way, and so that's why it kind of creeps me out in this video, and but that's, again, conspiracy, yes, even though it was stated publicly by the treasurer of the United States, the 43rd treasurer. And there are some, um, was it? Well, not really, but I think that was the main speech that really kind of opened my eyes and connected the dots around these other historical collapses. But other than that, that's all we had to go over to that. Hopefully this video gives you some good insight, some good understanding of where we are today, the macroeconomy, in the macroeconomy, and where we are with innovations around blockchain, and where Ripple stands in the and how Ripple stands in the middle of all this, and how we could essentially see utility take off this year. Many Ripple executives have been saying this for a little while now. Monica Long, I think, was one of them, and even Brad Garlinghouse and so forth. And with Mika at play, I can certainly see that happening. But that's all tonight, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you found it insightful, if you found it informative, please do help. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, give me a comment. I don't care if it's negative or positive. Just let me know what I can do to make it better. Let me know if I did a great job or not. Anything